Hello, friends. Thank you for joining. So, let's try to understand correlation today. But before we dive into correlation, let's just try to understand the term variable, right? So, what is variable? We have uh, heard of this term lot in our schools. So, variable is a characteristics which changes from person to person or time to time. So, if you are studying 100 people in population, then age is the one variable that keeps on changing. Okay. So now let's consider two variables, let's say age or let's say height or weight. If you want to define a relationship between them, then correlation is the statistical tool which helps us to our rescue. Okay. So let's try to see some examples and try to understand correlation. So if you plot, let's say, height of father and height of son, okay, and there you plot their height in inches, and you observe some 10 observe you have some 10 observations with you, right? Then what you do is that you plot them on scatter chart. So over here is the scatter chart based on this data set. And what we can see over here based on the data points that we have received, as the height of the father increases, the height of the sun increases as well. Okay. So if we even look at this data points, we see that as we move ahead, the values on x-axis keep on increasing, the values of y-axis also keep on increasing. So this is the perfect example of positive correlation, meaning that as the one variable keeps on increasing, the other variable also keeps on increasing. So this is the example of positive correlation. What about negative correlation? So let's say there are two variables. So let's take a real estate example. So we have a age of the house and selling price. So let's say if the age of the house is lesser, the selling price is more. Since it's a new construction, selling price would be more. So depends on the age of the house and the selling price. What we see as the age of the house increases, the selling price decreases. So this is the perfect example of negative correlation. Okay. So we looked at positive correlation. So whenever one variable increases, other increases. The other example over here, which we are looking at right now, is when one variable increases, the other decreases. And so we looked at positive correlation and negative correlation. Let's look at third option where we don't see any correlation at all. So if we say IQ of the person and height of the person, uh, in real world there is no relation between them, right? So if you plot these two data points on the scatter chart, what you see that you don't see any pattern over here. So that's why you say there is no correlation at all. Okay. So let's just summarize what we have learned so far. So what we learned is that correlation is the measure through which two variables or two phenomenons are related to each other. When one goes up, so does the other. Two variables are positively correlated if a change in one associated with change in other in the same direction. Okay. So that's how positive correlation is. When correlation is negative, if one variable increases and other decreases. And as we can see, we have those three examples over here. Now, now that we understood correlation a little bit, let's try to see the real world use case of correlation. Okay. So the real world use case is by Netflix. I have taken this example from the book Naked Statistics by Charles Wheelan. So how does Netflix recommends the movies I like, right? So we all know that Netflix and we all watch movie over there. So does it make sure that if I like certain movie, it is recommending me another movie which I would presumably like, right? So it is based on my ratings. So let's say I rate a movie, then some other users might also be rating the movies that they are watching. So let's say if there is another user named as John, okay, and John likes the movie. John sees movies he also likes. And if I have rated one movie of Tom Cruise as highly rated, and even John has rated that movie as highly rated, then John goes and watches some another movie, but I haven't watched it. And then what Netflix will do is that it will recommend that movie to me as well. So it correlates the user's rating, and based on user's rating, it actually recommends new series or new movies to people. Okay, so it is quite complex actually. The Netflix recommendation, they keep on upgrading and they use latest tech, but this is a very high level, simplified version of Netflix recommendation. Although they might have changed, but this is what uh, that I know for now. So it recommends movies that other users are rating similar, like I am. So I have 5 or 6 movies that I have watched. There is another user who has also watched, and we both have rated those 5, 6 movies in similar fashion. Then I'm likely to get a recommendation by the movies that I haven't watched, but the other users have rated highly. So that's how recommendation works. Now that we have looked at concept, we looked at the example. Let's try to dive deep, underlying the concept and try to understand how mathematics works. So if I go to positive correlation back, the positive correlation states that if the distance from mean for one variable tends to be broadly consistent with distance of the other variable, like if I'm picking an example where person's father's height is higher than average height of that data set, then son's height is also higher than the average, then we say it's a positive correlation. So we look at the mean and we say how much of my data point is fluctuating from mean, and the other data point from second variable, is it fluctuating in the similar fashion. So if I'm picking first variable and which is higher than its mean, the second variable is also higher than its mean, and those, so then in that situation we say that this data set is positively correlated, right? Now let's try to look at negative correlation. So we looked at the age of the house and selling price. So what does negative correlation says? If the distance from mean of one variable tends to be broadly consistent with distance from mean from other variable, but here in opposite direction, meaning that if the age of the house is higher, then the price of the house is lower than its mean. So as one variable tends to fluctuate in positive direction, the other variable tends to fluctuate in a similar sense, but in the opposite direction, with same magnitude, but in opposite direction from its mean. Then we say it's a negative correlation. And in third example that we looked at, if two variables do not deviate from the mean in any meaningful pattern, right? We don't see any pattern, then we conclude it as no correlation. So correlation is very important technique. It is used in machine learning. So it's very highly important for all of us to understand. But it's always easy for us to just look at the chart and see the pattern, and that helps us to understand whether two variables are positively correlated or negatively correlated. So that's how you can try to understand correlation. Uh, Try to look at real-time examples or real-world examples where things are correlated and share your thoughts. I hope this was clear. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.